We Happy Few. A story where we dive into a world of drugs, poverty and delusions. A world where hope is in rare supply at the end of a terrifying war against Germany and suffering the loss greater than people realise. In the game we play three characters, Arthur Hastings, Sally Boyle and Ollie Starkey. Each have a deep saddening life in Wellington Wells. In one of many videos we will look at their lives and explore their journey. Let's start with Arthur Hastings, a sleek, meek man whose appearance is as terrifying as a box of kittens. He's nervous in his surroundings, rambles when in social situations, and mumbles to himself to try and gain comfort. Yet as you progress through the game, we see he carries a guilty conscience, resulting in him wrestling with himself when trying to remember the truth. We first start with the protagonist at his workplace, where he works at the Department of Archives, Printing and Recycling as a redactor. His role is to censor articles deemed disruptive to the community, which will make people remember the bad times before joy was invented. Flicking through, we come along an article about two boys who won a scrap gathering prize. Arthur, realising it's him and his brother Percy, starts to feel sadness and pain. He becomes nervous and shakes as a memory begins to be heard in the background. A boy shouts, "Arthur! Arthur, where are you?" You can also hear sounds of what appears to be an announcer at a train station. He reaches for a pill bottle in desperation, and we the player are given a choice. To take it and forget, or not to and remember. Taking the pill leads to the game ending, but as many people who have played, they chose not to take their joy and remember. What is unusual about this moment is if you notice the clock on Arthur's wall, it spins quickly, leading us to see this emotional trauma put Arthur in a trance state for hours and only comes out once there is a knock on the door. His boss, Victoria Bing, walks in and notices something is wrong. Arthur quickly puts her mind at ease, claiming he is still on his joy. He inquires about a work colleague who was meant to be returning to work from holiday, while Miss Bingley voiced the question, inviting Arthur to a party instead. Arthur finishes his work. As he's heading towards the party though, he notices a work colleague being attacked by a man in a trench coat and green hat. You'll notice that everyone wears a white mask, but this one is different. As well as small features, such as glasses and a moustache, his smile is slightly wider than even the fixed grins of the everyday citizens. And his walk gives the appearance he is doing something sinister. He doesn't want you to see. He shuts the blinders, the door is locked, you cannot enter to see what is happening, nor help your colleague. Arthur also starts to notice more things are not as orderly as you'd expect. Offices are a complete mess. Each step we take, the world takes a dark turn. What once looked colourful and full of joy is now becoming dark, dreary, with flies buzzing around. Arriving at the party, everyone has gathered around the table, violently excited as there is a piñata ready to be smashed open to receive the wonderful sweets inside. Arthur tries to keep his composure while shaking nervously as he is handed a broom to whack the piñata. However, unlike the rest, Arthur is no longer wearing the rose-tinted glasses. As the piñata explodes, he is shocked and disgusted to see it was not a papier-mâché donkey with streamers and filled with sweets. It was a dead rat. Arthur is sick to his stomach, watching his colleagues gather around to feast upon the corpse, until Miss Bing notices there is something not quite right with Arthur. Knowing he is off his joy, she offers one of her pills. Arthur refuses. Miss Bing calls for security, claiming Arthur is a downer. You are chased into the sewers by the police. They beat Arthur to the ground with their truncheons, but smell gas and back off before finishing him off. The journey starts here. From the beginning of the game, we are thrown into the deep end with nothing to go on about why Arthur has been treated like a criminal for not taking his joy, or why it is mandatory for everyone to do so. First, let's take a step back from the main storyline and look into a small history of Arthur Hastings. Arthur Hastings was born August 12, 1934, though we are told very little at first. We know he has a brother called Percival, also known as Percy. Percy is often referred to as being dim and seems to have a developmental disorder, evidence maybe of being autistic. Arthur helped his brother by explaining things to him, though he was often bullied for his lack of understanding. However, through it all, Arthur remained by his side, though at times reluctantly. Back to the game. Arthur knows he is no longer welcome in Wellington Wells. His choices are to languish with the wastrels, people who are now off their joy and can no longer function with the status quo, or head towards the mainland. He decides to leave in hopes to find out what happened to his brother and reunite with him once more. Leaving the sewer, you come across a map showing the way to the train station. The plan of action is to use the tunnels to get to the mainland, but sadly there is a fenced entrance to where you need to go. The only way to get through is to help a nearby soldier who wants you to retrieve something for him. After you give him the item, Arthur recalls a memory involving himself and Percy. Percy told him that at 4:15 p.m. he had told a lie. Arthur inquires further. Mrs. Boyle, their neighbour, had come over to see Arthur as she was very angry to learn that he had been climbing a tree outside her daughter's room to watch her. Percy, knowing he is considered dim, told Mrs. Boyle it was him, not Arthur. Mrs. Boyle's attitude and emotions changed. Instead of being angry, she explained to him gently not to do it again. Percy told Arthur he had promised not to do it again, in a way suggesting his brother should stop. With a relief, Arthur thanks him, to which Percy replies, "I love you, Arthur." I find this memory very significant as it shows Percy's true character. Yes, he is held back by a developmental disorder, possibly autism, in a time where not much was known or not really recognised, meaning help was limited to the point of non-existent. Yet he is willing to put himself in harm's way to protect his brother, as the neighbours see him as a simpleton. Now you have the electric card to get through the door. As you approach, Arthur is scared as he remembers he needs to pass a Downy detector. Thankfully, it fails. True British workmanship. As you walk ahead, another memory comes, this time visually. There are two men and a woman tied up and hanged. They are dead. Arthur rambles about how they tried to get hold of a list with children's names on so the Germans did not know which ones to take. Out of fear for the town, they were executed to prevent any unpleasant repercussions towards the townfolk. Arthur vomits at the sight. He brushes it off, mumbling to himself, "I hope that's the worst thing I remember." From playing the game, you learn this is an alternative history where World War II played out differently, as Germany actually made it to British soil, beginning a regional occupation. The Germans demanded all children under the age of 13 years was to be taken to Berlin by train. For what reasons? We will cover this in another video. But for now we are looking at Arthur. When we get to the train station, it is under attack by wastrels who are angry as Ollie, an old neighbour of yours, is hoarding food during a famine and not sharing. While finding your way through the train station, it is clear this is the train station used to send the children somewhere, but where? Arthur finds a list of names with their birth dates. 3 names have been scratched off: Elizabeth Boyle, Maureen Boyle, and Margaret Worthing. The first question I asked was why these names were scratched off the list. If they missed the train, then why was Arthur's name still on? The first piece of evidence says something is wrong with how Arthur recalls the past, meaning there could be more than what he's laying on. He wants to know, but deep down in the subconscious, he is holding back in fear of knowing who he truly is. Throughout the game, Arthur mumbles about when they went to the train station. As he makes his way to find Ollie, he has a flashback of crying parents. He whispers softly, "I'm so sorry, Percy. I should have got on the train with you, like I promised. The rule was, if a kid was a day over 13, what could I do? You could have kept your mouth shut, Arthur, and not told him you were already 13. That's what you could have done." These words sent up a red flag, as the children were taken on July 22nd, 1947, just under a month before Arthur turned 13. So why did he lie about his age? Another flashback shows a conversation with the constable. Arthur pleads with him to let him on the train while his brother is being dragged on, screaming his name. The constable refuses, stating, "You are too old to go to Germany." In the game, you can read the notes Arthur makes, where he talks about promising Percy to go to Germany with him. He even asks himself why he lied about his age, and his only answer is, "Because that is the way, it is not your fault." Here we see Arthur trying to rationalise what he did, and for now we know very little to see if it was right of him to do so. Let's continue. After fighting your way through, you find Ollie, who attacks you. You plead with him to remember who you are. Ollie rebukes your claims of being Arthur, as he was taken away by the Germans years ago, and carries on swinging a bat at you. Ollie is right, as we remember the list stated Arthur Hastings was put on the train. We see Ollie seems a bit off for anyone. As Arthur talks to him, Ollie interrupts. We then realise Ollie is not talking to Arthur, but to someone we cannot see. Ollie talks about how something was Jack's fault, but Jack turned them in, and it was he, Ollie, who had tried to save them. We find out the name of the invisible person is called Margaret. We learn Margaret went to school with Arthur. He mentioned she was meant to go on the train, however she disappeared and no one would talk about what happened to her. Yet Ollie is here speaking to a figment of his mind. For some reason the form is Margaret, and we will look into this another time. After a short brawl, Arthur convinces him he is Arthur, explaining they had put the wrong birthday on his card and refused entry to the train. Though he knows this is not true, Arthur does not seem ready to be open about this to others. With a sudden realisation, Ollie looks down with a heavy heart, saying Arthur was the only child to return from the train station that day. We are left with a saddening truth. Minus Arthur, Margaret, Elizabeth and Maureen, over 50 children were sent to Germany and were never seen again. Join us next time, where we will look further into Arthur Hastings, his escape of Wellington Wells, and his fight within himself to discover the truth.